The warning sirens screamed across New Haven Colony as another blast shook the ground. Hana pressed her back against the metal wall of the command center, watching the tactical display with growing fear. Red dots surrounded their small world. Like angry wasps, the Vorthak Empire had finally come for them. "How long until the shields fail?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. As colony administrator, she could not show panic. Her people looked to her for strength. Dae-ho, her military advisor, studied the readings with grim eyes. 6 hours, maybe 7 if we're lucky. The generators are already running at maximum power. 6 hours. Hana closed her eyes for a moment. They had sent their distress signal 3 days ago when the first Vorthak scouts appeared at the edge of their system. The message had gone out to the Galactic Council, to anyone who might help. But no ships had come. No cavalry was riding to their rescue. The Talani were not warriors. They were artists, philosophers, and builders. Their greatest weapons were paintings and poems, not plasma cannons and missile arrays. New Haven was supposed to be safe, protected by council treaties and galactic law. But the Vorthak Empire did not care about laws. They came to planets like New Haven to kill everything that lived there. Another explosion rocked the colony. Through the reinforced windows, Hana could see the energy barrier that surrounded their settlement flickering like a dying candle. Beyond it, the sky burned with the light of Vorthak ships. 12 heavy cruisers hung in orbit like metal sharks, their weapons pouring death onto the shield generators. "Ma'am, we're getting reports from the outer settlements," a young technician called out. His name was Kyo, barely old enough to grow proper face fur. "The farms at Sector 7, they're gone. Nothing left but craters." Hana felt her heart sink lower. The outer farms had no shields, no protection at all. Families lived there. Children played in those fields just yesterday. Now they were dust and ash. "What about the evacuation?" she asked. Dae-ho checked his tablet. 80% of the population is in the underground shelters. The rest are still making their way in. We have maybe 10,000 people below ground now. 10,000 souls depending on her decisions. 10,000 lives that would end when those shields finally failed. The shelters would protect them from orbital bombardment for a while, but eventually the Vorthak would land ground troops. They would dig out every hiding place, hunt down every survivor. That was their way. The Vorthak were tall, gray-skinned creatures with faces like skulls and eyes like black holes. They had been killing their way across this part of the galaxy for 300 years. Wherever they went, worlds died. They did not take prisoners or slaves. They simply erased other species from existence as if cleaning dirt from their boots. "Sir, we're picking up movement in the outer atmosphere," one of the sensor operators reported. "Looks like landing craft, lots of them." Hana moved to look at the display. Hundreds of small red dots were dropping from the larger ships like seeds. From a dying flower. The ground invasion was beginning. "How long until they reach us?" Dae-ho asked. "At current speed, maybe 2 hours for the first wave." 2 hours. Hana thought of all the children in the shelters below. She thought of the elderly artists who had spent their lives creating beauty for the galaxy. She thought of the young couples who had come to New Haven to build new lives together. All of them would be dead before the sun set. "Is there anything else we can do?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Dae-ho shook his head slowly. "We have some hunting rifles, a few old security weapons. Against Vorthak battle armor, they might as well be throwing rocks." The truth was bitter but simple. The Talani had trusted in galactic civilization to protect them. They had believed that being peaceful and following the rules would keep them safe. They had been wrong. "Ma'am, should we try sending another distress signal?" Kyo asked. "To who?" Daeho replied harshly. "The council won't send ships. They're too afraid of starting a war with the Vorthak. And who else is there?" Hana was about to answer when the lights flickered. The shield generators were starting to fail. She could hear the deep humming sound that had protected them for 3 days growing weaker and weaker. "Wait," Kyo said, looking at his instruments with confusion. "I'm picking up something strange. A signal from the edge of the system." "More. Vorthak ships?" Daeho asked. "No, sir. This is different. It's very faint, like someone is trying to stay hidden. The signature doesn't match anything in our database." Hana felt a tiny spark of something she had almost forgotten. Hope. "Can you boost the signal?" Kyo's fingers danced over his controls. "I'm trying, ma'am. It's very weak, but... There. I've got it." The message that came through was short and filled with static. The voice was strange, speaking in a language none of them recognized at first, but their computers quickly translated it. "Colony New Haven. This is Captain Sungmin of the UES Retribution. We have received your distress call. Hold position and prepare for assistance. Do not reply to this message." The command center fell silent except for the distant sound of weapons fire. Everyone stared at the speakers as if they might produce more miracles. "UES?" Daeho whispered. "What does that mean?" "United Earth Ship," Hana said slowly. The words felt strange in her mouth. "They're humans." Everyone knew about humans, though few had ever seen one. They were the new species, the ones who had only recently joined galactic civilization. Most people said they were dangerous, unpredictable, and too aggressive for their own good. But they were also said to be excellent fighters. One ship? Daeho looked at the tactical display showing the massive Vorthak fleet. What can one ship do against all that? Hana did not know. But for the first time in 3 days, she felt something other than despair. Someone had heard their call for help. Someone was coming. Outside, the sky continued to burn as Vorthak landing craft descended like falling stars. The shield generators groaned under the constant bombardment. In the underground shelters, 10,000 Talani waited for death or salvation. High, above the planet, hidden in the darkness between stars, something watched and waited. Something that had traveled very far to answer a cry for help from strangers it had never met. The dying light of New Haven flickered and failed. But in that darkness, a new kind of light was about to be born. Captain Sung Min stood in the command center of the UES Retribution, watching the holographic display that showed the dying colony below. The message from New Haven had reached them just 6 hours ago, a desperate cry for help from a people facing extinction. Now they hung invisible at the edge of the system, their advanced cloaking technology hiding them from enemy sensors. "Show me the enemy formation again," Sung Min said quietly. Ji Woo, his tactical officer, touched her control panel. The display changed to show the Vorthak fleet in detail. 12 heavy cruisers formed a loose circle around the planet, their weapons continuously firing at the colony's failing shields. 4 massive dreadnoughts waited further out, like sleeping giants ready to crush anything that dared approach. "Estimated enemy strength?" Sung Min asked. "Each cruiser carries approximately 300 crew members," Ji Woo replied. "The dreadnoughts have over 1,000 each. Total enemy force is roughly 8,000 troops, not counting the ground forces they've already deployed." Sung Min nodded slowly. 8,000 enemies against his crew of 150. The numbers were not encouraging, but numbers had never been everything in warfare. The Retribution was not just any ship. It was humanity's most advanced stealth destroyer, built with technology that most alien species could not even imagine. "So Young, how long to reach optimal firing position?" he asked his navigator. So Young studied her instruments. "If we maintain current cloak settings and use minimal thrust, we can be in position in 4 hours. But Captain, once we start shooting, they'll know we're here." "That's the idea," Sung Min said with a thin smile. Wu Jin, the chief engineer, looked up from his station. "Captain, should I begin warming up the experimental systems?" "Not yet. First, I want to know everything about our enemy." Sung Min turned to Communications Officer Hyun Woo. "What do we know about the Vorthak?" Hyun Woo pulled up files on his screen. "According to galactic databases, they're a militaristic species that has been expanding aggressively for 3 centuries. They don't take prisoners or negotiate. When they attack a world, they kill everything living on it. Weapons and tactics? Conventional energy weapons, plasma-based. Heavy armor on their ships, but they rely on standard deflector shields. Their tactics are straightforward: overwhelm the enemy with superior firepower and numbers." Sung Min considered this information. The Vorthak were bullies who had never faced a real fight. They were used to attacking defenseless colonies and civilian populations. They had probably never encountered an enemy that could strike back effectively. "What about the people we're trying to save?" he asked. Jiwoo brought up information about the Talani. They're a peaceful species, known throughout the galaxy for their art and philosophy. The colony on New Haven has about 12,000 inhabitants, mostly artists, teachers, and farmers. Sung Min looked at images of the Talani people. They were tall and slender, with large eyes and delicate features. Their faces reminded him of the classical paintings he had seen in Earth's museums. These were not warriors or conquerors. They were people who created beauty and knowledge. Why are the Vorthak attacking them? He wondered aloud. The planet has rich mineral deposits, So Young answered. But honestly, sir, I think they're doing it just because they can. The Vorthak seem to enjoy destroying peaceful civilizations. The captain felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept it controlled. Anger could be useful in battle, but only if it was directed properly. These alien bullies had made a mistake. They had sent out a distress call that reached human space, and humans did not ignore cries for help. "Wu Jin, tell me about our capabilities," Sung Min said. The engineer smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "We have 40 quantum torpedoes, each one capable of phasing through standard energy shields. Our plasma cannons are next-generation designs that can punch through most armor. The adaptive cloaking system can hide us from any known sensor technology. And the experimental weapons? The gravity bomb is ready for testing. It creates a localized gravity field that can crush a ship from the inside. We also have the neural disruptor, which can shut down most alien nervous systems without killing them." Sung Min raised an eyebrow. "Without killing them? Humans prefer to give enemies a chance to surrender, sir. It's more civilized." The captain almost laughed. Humans talking about being civilized while preparing to attack a fleet of murderers. But perhaps that was what made them different from species like the Vorthak. Humans could be incredibly violent when necessary, but they never forgot their moral code. "What's our tactical advantage?" he asked Jiwoo. "Speed and surprise, sir. The Vorthak have never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of. Their formation is designed to prevent anyone from escaping the planet, not to defend against external attack." "Show me their blind spots." The display changed to highlight areas where the enemy ship's sensors overlapped poorly. There were gaps in their coverage, spaces where a fast, stealthy ship might slip through undetected. There, Sung-min pointed, to a position between two cruisers. If we approach from that angle, we can get within torpedo range before they know we're there. Sir, Hyun-woo interrupted. I'm picking up transmissions from the planet. The colony's shields are failing faster than expected. They have maybe 2 hours left. The captain felt the weight of time pressing down on him. 12,000 lives were counting on his decisions. Far below, families huddled in underground shelters, listening to the sound of death raining from the sky. Children were crying, parents were praying, and old people were preparing to die. Change of plans, Sung-min announced. We go in fast and hard, so young, plot an intercept course that puts us behind the nearest cruiser. Woo Jin, bring all systems online. Ji-woo, I want targeting solutions for the entire enemy fleet. His crew moved with practiced efficiency. These were not their first desperate odds. The Retribution had fought pirates, rebels, and alien raiders across a dozen star systems. They had learned to trust their captain's judgment and their own skills. Captain, Young-soo, the weapons specialist, called out. Should we try to contact the Vorthak first? Demand their surrender? Sung-min looked at the tactical display showing the burning planet below. He thought of the Talani families hiding in dark shelters, waiting for death. He thought of the outer settlements that had already been destroyed. The farms turned to ash, and the people turned to memories. No, he said quietly. They made their choice when they started killing innocents. Now they faced the consequences. The Retribution began to move through the darkness, its engines barely whispering. Like a shark rising from the deep ocean, it closed in on its prey. The Vorthak fleet continued their bombardment, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no idea that Earth's children were coming. The Retribution moved like a ghost through the outer system, its sensors recording everything while remaining completely invisible. Captain Sung-min studied the enemy fleet with the careful attention of a hunter examining his prey. Every detail mattered. Every weakness could mean the difference between victory and death. Launch stealth drones, he ordered quietly. I want close-range scans of every enemy vessel. So-young's fingers moved over her controls, and 12 tiny robots shot silently from hidden ports on the ship's hull. Each drone was no bigger than a human fist, but they carried sensors more advanced than anything the Vorthak had ever seen. Within minutes, they were spreading throughout the enemy formation like invisible spies. Ji-woo watched the incoming data on her tactical display. First drone is approaching the lead dreadnought. It's massive, sir. Over 2 kilometers long and heavily armored. What kind of weapons? Sung-min asked. Plasma cannons, lots of them. Missile tubes. Some kind of energy projector that I don't recognize. She paused, studying the readings more carefully. Sir, their shields are powerful, but they're using old technology. Standard deflector arrays, the kind that can stop conventional weapons but not much else. Young-soo, the weapons specialist, leaned forward with interest. So our quantum torpedoes should pass right through. Should be no problem, Ji-woo confirmed. These shields might as well be made of paper against our weapons. Sung-min nodded, but he was not ready to celebrate yet. What about their sensors? Detection capabilities? Basic electromagnetic arrays, Hyun-woo reported from his communications station. They can spot large objects at long range, but their resolution is poor. They're designed to track ships, not small fighters or missiles. Tactical formations? Ji-Woo highlighted the enemy positions on the main display. Very traditional. The cruisers form a loose circle around the planet for maximum bombardment coverage. The dreadnoughts stay back as reserves and command ships. It's a formation designed for attacking a stationary target, not for defending against mobile threats. Sungmin studied the pattern. It was exactly what he would expect from a species that had never faced serious opposition. The Vorthak had grown arrogant from centuries of easy victories against defenseless worlds. They had forgotten that warfare was about more than just having bigger guns. "Show me their ground forces," he said. The image shifted to show the planet's surface. Through the failing shields of New Haven Colony, Sungmin could see the organized destruction taking place below. Vorthak landing craft had deposited thousands of soldiers around the settlement. They moved in tight formations, advancing slowly and methodically toward the underground shelters where the Talani civilians hid. "Analyze their ground tactics," he told Tae-young, his Marine commander. Tae-young studied the enemy movements with professional interest. "They're using standard siege doctrine. Surround the target, cut off escape routes, then dig out the defenders room by room. Very effective against civilian populations." "What about their equipment?" "Heavy battle armor, energy weapons, some kind of digging machines for breaking into the shelters. They're well equipped for this kind of work." Tae-young's voice carried disgust. "These aren't soldiers, sir. They're exterminators." Sungmin watched Vorthak troops systematically destroying Talani cultural sites. Ancient temples that had stood for centuries were reduced to rubble in minutes. Art galleries filled with irreplaceable masterpieces were burned to ash. Libraries containing thousands of years of accumulated knowledge were torn apart and scattered to the wind. Why destroy the cultural sites? Han Newell, the ship's medic, asked quietly. "They have no military value." "Because that's what the Vorthak do," Hyun-woo answered grimly. "They don't just kill people. They erase entire civilizations. When they're done here, it will be as if the Talani never existed." The captain felt cold anger building in his chest. This was not warfare. This was genocide on a scale that even humans, with their violent history, found horrifying. The Vorthak were not just conquering New Haven, they were performing surgery on reality itself, cutting away every trace of Talani existence. "Sir?" Jin Ho, the demolitions expert, spoke up. "I'm seeing something interesting in their supply lines." The display showed the enemy logistics network. Supply ships moved between the fleet and the planet's surface, carrying ammunition, equipment, and reinforcements. The pattern was regular and predictable. "They're using fixed schedules," Jin Ho observed. "Same routes, same timing, very efficient but also very vulnerable to disruption." Sungmin smiled coldly. "How vulnerable?" "Give me access to their supply depot for 10 minutes, and I can turn their entire logistics network into a fireworks display." "What about their command structure?" the captain asked Ji-Woo. "Highly centralized. Everything runs through the flagship, that big dreadnought in the center of the formation. If we can take out their command ship, the rest of the fleet will be operating blind." Woo-jin looked up from his engineering station. "Captain, I'm reading some interesting energy signatures from their ships. They're running their reactors at about 60% capacity, meaning they're not expecting a real fight. If they suddenly need full power for combat, their systems will take time to respond. We'll have a window of opportunity." Sungmin processed all this information, building a mental picture of his enemy. The Vorthak were strong, numerous, and well-equipped. but they were also predictable, arrogant, and completely unprepared for the kind of fight they were about to face. "Assessment complete," he announced to his crew. "The enemy has overwhelming numerical superiority and heavy firepower, but they're operating under several critical assumptions." He gestured to the tactical display. "First, they assume no one will challenge them. Their formation is designed for bombardment, not defense. Second, they assume their technology is superior. It's not, it's just bigger. Third, they assume their enemy will fight conventionally. We won't." Young-Soo grinned. "So what's the plan, sir?" "We're going to teach the Vorthak something they should have learned long ago," Sungmin replied. "Never pick a fight with someone who has nothing to lose and everything to prove." He turned to address his entire crew. "In 1 hour, we begin combat. Operations. Our mission is simple. Save the Talani colony and eliminate the Vorthak threat. We are 1 ship against 16. We are 150 people against 8,000. The odds are impossible." The captain paused, looking at each of his officers in turn. These men and women had followed him through battles that seemed hopeless before. They had faced impossible odds and won through skill, courage, and sheer determination. "But we are human," he continued. "And humans do not abandon innocence to monsters. We do not accept defeat when justice is at stake. And we do not back down from bullies, no matter how big they are." The crew straightened in their chairs. Every face showed the same expression, calm determination mixed with controlled fury. They had seen what the Vorthak did to peaceful worlds. They knew what would happen to New Haven if they failed. "All stations, prepare for combat," Sungmin ordered. "It's time to remind the galaxy why humans are not to be underestimated." Below them, the planet New Haven continued to burn. But in the darkness of space, death was coming for the destroyers, and it wore a human face. The first quantum torpedo left the Retribution without a sound, its exotic matter warhead invisible to conventional sensors. Captain Sung-min watched the tactical display as the weapon streaked toward its target, a Vorthak heavy cruiser positioned on the outer edge of their formation. "Time to impact, 15 seconds, Young-Soo reported quietly. The crew held their breath. Everything depended on these next few moments. If their weapons failed, if their intelligence was wrong, if the enemy detected them too early, 12,000. Innocent lives would pay the price. 10 seconds, Young-Soo counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Vorthak cruiser simply vanished. One moment it was there, a kilometer-long ship bristling with weapons and armor. The next moment there was only expanding debris and a brief flash of light that marked where 800 alien soldiers had been alive just seconds before. "Direct hit," Jiwoo confirmed. "Target destroyed. The quantum torpedo phased right through. Their shields like they weren't even there." But Sungmin was already moving to the next phase. "Launch Torpedo 2. Target the cruiser at grid 7-7. The second weapon flew toward another enemy ship. This time, the crew of the Retribution could see the result more clearly. The torpedo materialized inside the cruiser's hull and detonated, tearing the massive vessel apart from within. Atmosphere and debris scattered into space like the contents of a broken egg. 2 ships down, So Young reported. The rest of the fleet is starting to react. They're moving to combat formation. On the tactical display, the remaining Vorthak. Ships were spreading out, their captains frantically trying to locate the source of the attack. But their sensors found nothing. The Retribution remained completely invisible, a ghost ship that struck without warning and vanished without trace. "Sir, they're trying to communicate with each other," Hyunwoo announced. "I'm picking up hundreds of transmission attempts." "Jam them," Sungmin ordered. I don't want them coordinating their response. Hyunwoo's fingers danced over his controls. Across the enemy fleet, communication systems began failing as powerful electronic interference filled the radio spectrum. Ship captains found themselves isolated, unable to speak to their commanders or coordinate with their neighbors. Third torpedo away, Young-soo called out. This time, the target was one of the massive dreadnoughts. The quantum torpedo struck the giant ship near its engine section. The explosion was spectacular, a chain reaction that tore through multiple decks and left the dreadnought spinning helplessly with its main propulsion destroyed. Excellent shot, Sung-min said. That ship is out of the fight. But now the enemy was beginning to adapt. The remaining ships were firing randomly into space, hoping to hit their invisible attacker by chance. Plasma bolts and missiles filled the darkness around New Haven, a desperate display of firepower aimed at shadows. They're getting smarter, Ji-woo observed. Look at this formation change. The Vorthak fleet was contracting, pulling their ships closer together so they could provide mutual support. It was actually a good tactical decision if they had been fighting a conventional enemy. So Young, take us through Grid 49, Sung-min ordered. Right through the middle of their formation. His navigator looked shocked. Sir, that will put us directly between 6 enemy ships. If they detect us, they won't, the captain said confidently. Their sensors are designed to look outward, not inward. We'll be invisible until we're right on top of them. The Retribution glided silently through the enemy formation like a shark swimming among confused fish. All around them, Vorthak ships fired their weapons into empty space, their crews terrified by an enemy they could not see or understand. Perfect position, Sung-min announced. Young-soo, fire all forward tubes. I want those 3 cruisers eliminated, simultaneously. 6 quantum torpedoes launched at once, each one targeted at a different section of the enemy formation. The results were devastating. 3 more Vorthak ships died in brilliant explosions that lit up the space around New Haven, like deadly fireworks. 7 ships destroyed, Ji-woo reported with satisfaction. The enemy fleet is in complete disarray, but the captain was not finished. Woo-jin, bring the gravity bomb online. Target the command dreadnought. The chief engineer hesitated. Sir, that weapon is still experimental. We've never tested it in actual combat. Then today, we find out if it works, Sung-min replied grimly. The gravity bomb was humanity's latest innovation in warfare, a weapon that created an artificial gravity well inside an enemy ship. If it worked properly, it would crush the target. From within, imploding the hull like a tin can in a vacuum. Gravity bomb armed and ready, Woo-jin announced. Fire! The weapon launched silently, invisible even to the Retribution's own sensors. It struck the Vorthak flagship and seemed to have no effect at all. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the massive dreadnought began to crumple. Its hull plates buckled, inward as if squeezed by an invisible giant's fist. Internal explosions flashed through the collapsing structure as bulkheads failed and systems overloaded. Within 30 seconds, the most powerful ship in the Vorthak fleet had been compressed into a ball of twisted metal barely 100 meters across. My God, whispered Han-Yul. It actually worked. The destruction of their flagship broke what remained of Vorthak morale. The surviving ships began to scatter, their captains abandoning all formation and discipline in their panic to escape the invisible death that stalked them, but Sung-min was not ready to let them go. So Young, pursue the fleeing ships. "Young Su, continue firing. I want every enemy vessel either destroyed or driven from this system." The Retribution raced after the retreating Vorthak forces, its quantum torpedoes picking off stragglers one by one. Some of the enemy ships tried to fight back, but their weapons could not hit what they could not see. Others attempted to flee at maximum speed, but the human ship was faster and more maneuverable. Down on the planet, the colonists are emerging. "From their shelters," Hyunwoo reported. "They can see the explosions in orbit. They know someone is fighting for them." Sung-min thought of the Talani families who had huddled in darkness for 3 days, waiting for death. Now they stood in the ruins of their colony, looking up at the sky where their oppressors' ships burned like falling stars. "How many enemy vessels remain?" he asked. 4 cruisers and 1 damaged dreadnought," Ji-woo answered. "They're all in full retreat, heading for the edge of the system." The captain considered letting them go. His primary mission was to save the colony, and that objective had been achieved. But then he thought of all the other worlds the Vorthak had destroyed, all the other peaceful civilizations they had erased from existence. "Continue pursuit," he ordered. "We finish this today." The remaining Vorthak ships died one by one as the Retribution hunted them through the outer system. The last enemy vessel, a cruiser with its engines damaged and its shields failing, tried to surrender by broadcasting a message on all frequencies. "They're asking for mercy," Hyunwoo translated. Sung-min thought of the burning farms, the destroyed temples, the systematic murder of innocent people. He thought of the Vorthak troops who had been digging toward the shelters where children hid in the darkness. "Tell them," he said coldly, "that mercy is what they should have shown the Talani. Fire." The final quantum torpedo ended the space battle above New Haven. Where 16 Vorthak warships had once dominated the system, now only debris remained. The Retribution hung alone in the silence, its crew watching the tactical display that showed nothing but empty space and the gentle blue-green glow of the liberated world below. "Sir," Tae-young spoke up from his station, "what about the ground? Forces? There are still thousands of Vorthak troops on the planet's surface." Sung-min smiled for the first time since the battle began. "Now comes the fun part. Prepare the landing teams. It's time to introduce those ground forces to human infantry tactics." Below them, New Haven waited for the next phase of its liberation. The sky battle was over, but the war was not finished yet. The Retribution's drop pods fell through New Haven's atmosphere like metal meteors, their heat shields glowing white-hot as they plunged toward the planet's surface. Inside each pod, human Marines checked their weapons and prepared for combat against an enemy that had never faced their kind before. Tae-young rode in the lead pod, his powered armor systems running final diagnostics. Through his helmet display, he could see the landing zone approaching fast, a clear area just outside the main Talani settlement where Vorthak forces had established their command post. 30 seconds to touchdown," he announced over the comm channel. "Remember, these aliens have been terrorizing civilians for 3 days. They think they're dealing with helpless prey. Time to show them what happens when Earth's children come to play." The pods struck the ground with tremendous force, their impact dampeners absorbing the shock. Before the dust had settled, the doors blew open and 24 human Marines emerged into the alien world's pale sunlight. Tae-young took his first breath of New Haven's air through his suit's filters. It tasted of smoke and destruction. Around him, he could see the ruins of what had once been a peaceful farming community. Burned houses, destroyed vehicles, and the scattered belongings of families who had fled for their lives. Movement. 2:00, reported Jin Ho, the demolitions expert. Looks like a Vorthak patrol. Through the smoke and debris, they could see a squad of alien soldiers moving toward their position. The Vorthak were tall and lean, their gray skin protected by black battle armor that covered them from head to toe. They carried energy weapons that hummed with deadly power. "Let them come closer," Tae-young ordered. "I want to see how they react to surprise." The Vorthak patrol advanced confidently, clearly expecting to find more helpless Talani civilians. Their movements were casual, almost bored. These soldiers had been hunting defenseless artists and farmers for days. They had forgotten what it felt like to face an actual threat. When the leading Vorthak was 50 meters away, Tae-young gave the signal. "Engage!" The human Marines opened fire with weapons that had been designed specifically for fighting in alien environments. Plasma rifles sent bolts of superheated energy through the air with perfect accuracy. The Vorthak soldiers had no time to react before half their squad was down. But these were not the first aliens that humans had fought. The Marines moved with practiced efficiency, using cover and coordinated fire to eliminate the remaining enemies within seconds. The entire engagement lasted less than 30 seconds. "Clean kills," Ha-Newell reported as she moved to check the bodies. "Their armor is tough, but not tough enough to stop our weapons." Tae-young studied the dead Vorthak through his helmet's sensors. Their equipment was good quality, but it was designed for fighting primitive species with basic technology. Against human military engineering, it might as well have been made of cardboard. "Sir, I'm picking up radio chatter," reported the squad's communications specialist. "The Vorthak are trying to figure out what happened to that patrol." "How long before they send reinforcements?" "Maybe 10 minutes. But, sir, there's something else. I'm detecting Talani life signs from that building over there." The Marine pointed to a partially collapsed structure about 200 meters away. "Looks like civilians who didn't make it to the main shelters." Tae-young felt his jaw tighten. There were still innocents trapped in the combat zone, hiding from the alien death squads that had been hunting them for days. "Squad 2, establish." "A perimeter," he ordered. "Squad 1, with me. We're going to extract those civilians." The humans moved through the ruined settlement like ghosts, their powered armor allowing them to leap over obstacles and move silently through the debris. Their helmet displays showed them heat signatures, movement patterns, and potential threats from all directions. The building where the Talani were hiding had once been a school. Tae-young could see the remains of children's artwork on the walls, bright paintings that showed a world of peace and beauty. Now those walls were scorched by energy weapons and cracked by explosions. "Hello?" he called out in the Talani language, his suit's translator making the words sound natural. "We are here to help. You are safe now." A section of rubble shifted, and a frightened face appeared in the gap. It was an elderly Talani female, her large eyes wide with terror. Behind her, Tae-young could see others, adults and children huddled together in what had once been a storage room. "Please," the old woman whispered, "do not hurt us. We have nothing of value." Tae-young slowly removed his helmet, showing his human face. "My name is Tae-young. I am from Earth. We received your distress signal." The Talani stared at him in amazement. Like most galactic species, they had heard stories about humans but had never seen one in person. To them, humans were legendary figures, dangerous warriors who lived on the edge of known space. You came to help us?" the old woman asked. "That's what we do," Tae-young replied simply. "Can you walk? We need to get you to safety. Took several minutes to help the dozen Talani civilians out of their hiding place. They were weak from days without proper food or water, and some were injured from the constant bombardment. Hanul immediately began treating the wounded while the other Marines kept watch for enemy patrols. "Sir, we've got company," Jin-Ho announced. "Large Vorthak force moving this way. Looks like they brought heavy weapons." Through his helmet display, Tae-young could see the approaching enemy force. 3 squads of Vorthak soldiers, supported by armored vehicles and what looked like some kind of walking tank. It was a force designed to crush any resistance from civilian defenders. "How many?" he asked. 60 troops, plus vehicles. They'll be here in 5 minutes. Tae-young looked at the frightened Talani civilians, then at his 24 Marines. The odds were not good, but humans had won fights against worse odds before. "Hanul, get the civilians to the extraction point," he ordered. "Everyone else, prepare defensive positions. We're going to show these alien bullies what happens when they threaten innocents." The Marines spread out through the ruined buildings, their powered armor allowing them to take positions that would have been impossible for unaugmented soldiers. Some climbed to high vantage points, while others found cover behind debris that could stop energy weapons. "Remember," Tae-young announced, over the comm channel, "these Vorthak have been murdering children for 3 days. They chose to be monsters. Now they face the consequences." The first Vorthak vehicles appeared at the edge of the settlement, moving slowly and carefully. Their crews had learned that something dangerous was in the area, but they still had no idea what they were truly facing. Jin-Ho had spent the last few minutes placing explosive charges throughout the approach routes. When the lead vehicle reached the optimal position, he triggered the first batch of demolitions. The explosions shook the ground and filled the air with smoke and debris. 2 Vorthak vehicles were destroyed instantly, while a third was damaged and left burning. The alien infantry scattered, seeking cover among the ruins, but the humans were ready for them. Plasma fire erupted from a dozen concealed positions, cutting down Vorthak soldiers with surgical precision. The aliens tried to return fire, but they could not see their enemies clearly through the smoke and confusion. "Target the walking tank," Tae-young ordered. "Concentrated fire on its main weapon system. Multiple plasma rifles focused on the enemy's heavy weapon platform." The sustained fire overwhelmed its armor, causing internal explosions that left the machine a smoking wreck. The surviving Vorthak troops began to retreat, but the humans pursued them relentlessly. This was not the kind of fight the aliens were used to. They were accustomed to hunting helpless civilians, not battling skilled warriors who fought back with superior equipment and tactics. Within 20 minutes, the enemy force had been completely eliminated. Not a single Vorthak soldier survived to report what they had encountered. "Area secure," Tae-young announced. "All civilians extracted safely. 0 human casualties." Through his comm link, he could hear Captain Sung-min's voice from orbit. "Excellent. Work, Marine Commander. How do you assess the enemy ground forces?" "They're dangerous against civilians, sir, but they've never faced real soldiers. Their equipment is decent, but their tactics are designed for terrorizing farmers and artists, not fighting Marines." "What's your recommendation?" Tae-young looked at the burning wreckage around him, then at the distant Talani settlement where thousands more civilians were still hiding in underground shelters. "Sir, request permission to expand operations. There are still enemy forces on this planet, and they're still hunting innocent people. I'd like to hunt them back." "Permission granted," came the captain's reply. "Show them what happens when humans go to war." Tae-young smiled grimly as he put his helmet back on. The Vorthak had made a fatal mistake when they chose to attack New Haven. They had awakened something that would not rest until every last alien soldier was dead or fled. The liberation of New Haven was just beginning. Admiral Kresh stood in the command center of his flagship, watching the tactical display with growing disbelief. In less than 4 hours, his entire fleet had been destroyed by an enemy he could not see or understand. 16 powerful warships, reduced to scattered debris by a single ghost ship that struck without warning and vanished without trace. The Vorthak were not used to fear. For 3 centuries they had been the hunters, the predators who swept across the galaxy, consuming weaker species. But now, for the first time in his long military career, Kresh felt the cold touch of genuine terror. "Report from the ground forces," his communications officer announced. "What do they say?" "Contact has been lost with the northern patrol groups. The last transmission mentioned unknown soldiers with advanced weapons." Kresh bared his teeth in frustration. First his fleet, now his ground troops. The enemy was picking apart his forces piece by piece, and he still did not know who they were fighting. "Sir," his science officer spoke up nervously, "I've been analyzing the wreckage from our destroyed ships. The weapon signatures are unlike anything in our databases." "Explain." "The energy readings suggest some kind of phase shift technology that allows projectiles to pass through conventional shielding. And the gravity weapon that destroyed the destroyer's wrath." "Sir, that technology should not exist." Kresh studied the young officer's frightened face. His crew was beginning to panic, and panic would kill them all if he allowed it to spread. "What species could possess such weapons?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. But there are rumors from the outer sectors about a new species that recently joined. Galactic civilization. They call themselves humans." The word sent a chill through the command center. Every Vorthak warrior had heard whispers about the humans, the aggressive newcomers who lived on the edge of known space. Most had dismissed such stories as exaggeration, but now those whispers seemed far more ominous. "Humans," Kresh repeated, slowly. "What do we know about them?" "Very little, sir. They appeared in galactic affairs only recently. Most species consider them dangerous and unpredictable. They are said to be excellent fighters, but no one has detailed information about their military capabilities." Kresh turned back to the tactical display showing the planet below. Whatever had destroyed his fleet was still out there, invisible and deadly. His remaining ships, a few damaged cruisers and some support vessels, would not last long against such an enemy. But the Admiral was not ready to admit defeat. The Vorthak Empire did not retreat from inferior species, no matter what tricks they possessed. "Recall all ground forces to the main landing zone," he ordered. "If we cannot hold orbit, we will make our stand on the planet's surface." "Sir, that will leave thousands of the enemy civilians alive in their shelters. Then we will deal with them later. Right now, survival is more important than completing the extermination." As his orders went out across the planet, Vorthak forces began withdrawing from their positions around the Talani settlements. Units that had been hunting civilians through the ruins suddenly found themselves under attack by human marines who seemed to appear from nowhere. On the planet's surface, Tae Young received reports from his scattered teams. "Sir, the aliens are pulling back to a central position about 50 kilometers south of the main colony. Numbers? Best estimate is 8,000 troops, plus vehicles and heavy weapons. They're digging in for a defensive battle." Captain Sungmin's voice crackled over the comm channel from orbit. "Marine Commander, can you handle those numbers with your current force?" Tae Young looked at his tactical display. 24 Marines against 8,000 enemy soldiers. Even with their superior equipment and training, those odds were impossible. Negative, sir. We can harass them and slow them down, but we don't have the firepower to eliminate a force that size. Understood. Continue your current operations. Keep the enemy confused and off balance. Help is coming. High above the planet, the Retribution was preparing for the most dangerous phase of the battle. Wu Jin worked frantically at his engineering station, pushing the ship's experimental systems beyond their designed limits. Gravity bomb status? Captain Sungmin asked. We have 3 more bombs ready, but sir, using them in atmosphere could have unpredictable effects. The gravity distortions might damage the planet's surface. What about the neural disruptor? That's a possibility. The weapon is designed to shut down alien nervous systems without killing them. We could potentially disable thousands of enemy troops simultaneously. Jiwoo looked up from her tactical station. Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the enemy position. They're charging some kind of planetary bombardment weapon. The main display showed the Vorthak landing zone, where alien engineers were assembling a massive energy projector. The weapon was clearly designed to crack open the underground shelters where the Talani civilians were hiding. Time to completion? Sungmin asked grimly. At current rate of construction, maybe 6 hours. The captain felt the weight of time pressing against him. If the Vorthak completed their weapon, 12,000 innocent people would die. But attacking such a large ground force would require exposing his ship to tremendous risk. So young. Can you get us into the atmosphere? His navigator studied her instruments. It's possible, sir, but we'll be vulnerable to ground-based weapons. If they have anti-aircraft missiles. They do, Young-soo confirmed. I'm reading multiple surface-to-air systems in their defensive perimeter. Sung-min considered his options. The safe choice would be to withdraw and call for reinforcements from Earth. But by the time help arrived, New Haven would be a dead world. All hands, prepare for atmospheric entry, he announced. We're going in low and fast. One chance to end this. The Retribution began its descent through New Haven's atmosphere, its adaptive cloaking system struggling to hide the ship's heat signature from enemy sensors. Below them, the Vorthak position looked like a metallic cancer on the planet's surface. Thousands of vehicles and structures arranged in defensive patterns. They're trying to lock onto us with targeting systems, Hyun-woo reported. I'm jamming their sensors, but it won't work for long. Neural disruptor ready, Woo Jin announced. But sir, we need to get within 2 kilometers for maximum effectiveness. 2 kilometers. At that range, every weapon in the Vorthak army would be firing at them. The Retribution was tough, but it was not invulnerable. Do it, Sungmin ordered. The ship dove toward the enemy position like a falling star. Anti-aircraft missiles rose to meet them, their warheads exploding in brilliant flashes that lit up the sky. The Retribution's shields absorbed the impacts, but the captain could see the energy readings dropping rapidly. 1 kilometer, So-young called out. Taking heavy fire from all directions. Neural disruptor firing now, Woo Jin announced. An invisible wave of energy swept across the Vorthak position. Soldiers who had been manning weapons suddenly collapsed as their nervous systems shut down. Vehicle crews slumped unconscious over their controls. Within seconds, the entire enemy force was rendered helpless. Direct hit, Jiwoo confirmed. All enemy troops are down. They're alive but unconscious. Captain Sungmin allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. 8,000 enemy soldiers eliminated without a single death. It was exactly the kind of precise, overwhelming victory that humans specialized in. Tae-young, the enemy ground force is neutralized, he announced over the comm. Move in and secure the area. Copy that, sir. My teams are already moving. As human Marines advanced on the defenseless Vorthak position, Admiral Kresh realized that his campaign of extermination had become a disaster of unprecedented proportions. In less than 8 hours, he had lost his entire fleet and all his ground forces to an enemy that fought with weapons and tactics he could not comprehend. The Vorthak Empire had finally encountered a species that was stronger, smarter, and more ruthless than they were, and that species had come to New Haven not to conquer, but to protect. For the first time in 3 centuries of expansion, the Vorthak had met their match. Admiral Kresh woke up in a human detention facility, his gray skin pale with shock and confusion. The neural disruptor had left him unconscious for 6 hours, and his first coherent thought was disbelief that he was still alive. Around him, thousands of Vorthak soldiers sat in organized groups, all of them prisoners of war. Human Marines moved between them with weapons ready, but their discipline was impressive. Not a single prisoner had been harmed, despite what they had done to the Talani. Civilians. Tae Young approached the Admiral's position, his powered armor making him look like a mechanical giant. When he spoke, his voice was calm, but filled with cold authority. Admiral Kresh of the Vorthak Third Fleet, you are now a prisoner of the United Earth Forces. Your soldiers have been disarmed and secured. Kresh struggled to his feet, his legs, still weak from the neural weapon's effects. I demand to know by what right you interfere with Vorthak military operations. By the right of superior firepower, Tae Young replied simply. And by the right of decent people to protect innocents from murderers. The human Marine's words hit Kresh like physical blows. In all his years of conquest, no one had ever spoken to him with such casual contempt. The Vorthak Empire inspired fear throughout this region of space. Species trembled at the mention of their name. You do not understand what you have done, Kresh said, trying to regain his composure. The Empire will send more fleets. They will glass this entire world in revenge for this humiliation. Tae Young tilted his armored head slightly. Let them come. We'll be waiting. The simple confidence in the human's voice was more terrifying than any threat could have been. These creatures truly believed they could face the entire Vorthak Empire and win. High above the planet, Captain Sung-min was dealing with a more immediate problem. His sensors had detected 3 Vorthak ships approaching the edge of the system. Survivors from the original fleet who had managed to escape the initial slaughter. Sir, the enemy vessels are maintaining distance, Jiwoo reported. They appear to be observing our operations. What type of ships? 1 heavy cruiser and 2 destroyers. Probably scouting units that were sent to investigate when the main fleet stopped reporting. Sung-min studied the tactical display. The smart thing for those ships to do would be to retreat immediately and report what had happened here. But if they escaped, they would bring reinforcements, possibly an entire battle fleet. So Young, can we intercept them before they reach jump range? Negative, sir. They're staying at maximum sensor distance, and they have a significant head start. The captain considered his options. The Retribution had already performed miracles today, but chasing down 3 fleeing ships across an entire star system would strain his resources to the breaking point. Woojin, what's our status on experimental weapons? We have 1 gravity bomb remaining, sir. The neural disruptor needs 8 hours to recharge, and the quantum torpedo reserves are down to 12 units. 12 torpedoes against 3 ships. Normally, that would be more than sufficient. But the enemy vessels were alert now and maintaining maximum distance. A conventional pursuit would take hours, giving them time to escape. Sir, Young-soo spoke up from his weapons station. I have an idea. Let's hear it. What if we don't chase them? What if we let them come to us? Sung Min raised an eyebrow. Explain. Those ships are scouts. Their mission is to find out what happened to the main fleet. Right now, they're probably sending long-range sensor sweeps, trying to gather intelligence. And what if we give them something to investigate? Something irresistible? The weapons specialist's plan was audacious and risky, but it had the elegance that Sung Min had learned to associate with successful operations. Within an hour, the Retribution was broadcasting a fake distress signal while apparently drifting powerless near New Haven's largest moon. "Sir, it's working," Hyunwoo announced. "The enemy ships are changing course to investigate. They think we're damaged and helpless. How long until they reach weapons range? 3 hours at current speed. 3 hours to prepare the perfect ambush." Sung Min smiled coldly as he watched the enemy vessels approaching his trap. The Vorthak had built their reputation on being predators, but they had never learned the first rule of hunting. Make sure your prey is actually helpless before you move in for the kill. On the planet's surface, Tae-young was conducting his own form of warfare. His Marines had secured all the unconscious Vorthak soldiers, but there was still the problem of what to do with 8,000 prisoners of war. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Talani colony," his communications specialist reported. The message came from Elder Hannah, the colony administrator who had led her people through 3 days of terror. Her voice was weak but determined. "Human Commander, we wish to thank you for saving our people. But we must ask, what will happen to the Vorthak prisoners?" It was a fair question. The Geneva Conventions required humane treatment of prisoners, but these particular prisoners had been engaged in systematic genocide. They had murdered civilians, destroyed cultural sites, and hunted children through the ruins of their homes. "The prisoners will be treated according to galactic law," Tae-young replied carefully. "They will be fed, housed, and given medical attention. And then they will face trial for war crimes." There was a long pause before Hannah responded. "Commander, may I ask you something? Why did your people come to help us? We are strangers to you. We have nothing to offer in return." Tae-young considered the question. Why had humans traveled across the galaxy to save people they had never met? Why risk their lives for aliens who could never repay the debt? "Because it was the right thing to do," he said finally. "Because innocents should not die while good people do nothing. Because someone has to stand up to bullies no matter how big they are." Is that truly enough reason for your people? It's the only reason that matters. In orbit, the 3 Vorthak ships were closing in on what they believed was a crippled human vessel. The lead cruiser's captain was already planning how he would capture the alien technology and present it to the Empire as a trophy. 1 hour to intercept, Jiwoo announced quietly. The crew of the Retribution waited in silence, every system powered down to minimum levels to maintain the illusion of helplessness. Their ship drifted among the moon's debris field like a dead whale, apparently broken and defenseless. "Sir, the enemy ships are spreading out into attack formation," Young-soo observed. "They're taking this seriously." "Good," Sung Min replied. "Overconfidence might have made them careless." At precisely the right moment, when all 3 Vorthak vessels were committed to their attack run, the Retribution came back to life. Its cloaking system activated, its weapons powered up, and its engines roared back to full power. The enemy ships found themselves facing not a helpless wreck, but a fully operational human warship at point-blank range. Their formation, perfect for attacking a stationary target, became a death trap when that target suddenly moved. 3 quantum torpedoes ended the fight before it really began. The Vorthak ships exploded in sequence, their hulls torn apart by exotic matter warheads that phased through their shields like they were made of paper. All enemy vessels destroyed, Young-Soo reported with satisfaction. No survivors detected. Captain Sung-min nodded grimly. The last witnesses to what had happened at New Haven were gone. When the Vorthak Empire realized that an entire fleet had vanished without trace, they would have to decide whether to send more ships into what might be a trap. "Sir, message from the surface," Hyun-woo announced. "Marine Commander Tae-young reports all objectives secured. The colony is safe." "What about casualties?" "0 human casualties, sir. The Talani have some wounded from the original bombardment, but no deaths since we arrived." Sung-min allowed himself a moment of pride. His crew had achieved something that would have been impossible for any other ship in the galaxy. They had defeated a numerically superior enemy, saved 12,000 innocent lives, and captured 8,000 prisoners without losing a single human life. But he knew this was only the beginning. News of what had happened at New Haven would spread throughout the galaxy. The Vorthak Empire would demand revenge. Other species would wonder if humans could be trusted with such military power. The real test was yet to come. 3 days after the battle, Elder Hana stood in the ruins of New Haven's Central Plaza, watching human engineers work alongside Talani volunteers to rebuild what the Vorthak had destroyed. The contrast was remarkable. Where the aliens had brought only death and destruction, these humans brought tools, knowledge, and hope. Captain Sung-min walked beside her, his uniform clean despite the dust and debris that covered everything else. His crew had been working around the clock to help the colony recover from its ordeal. "Your people are remarkable," Hana said, watching Woo Jin explain some complex engineering concept to a group of fascinated Talani technicians. 3 days ago they were warriors. Today, they are teachers and builders. "Humans believe in rebuilding what others tear down," Sung-min replied. "It's not enough to defeat evil. You have to replace it with something better." They passed a group of children, who were playing near one of the human drop pods. The youngsters were laughing and climbing on the metal surface, completely unafraid of the machine that had brought their saviors from the sky. Yesterday, these same children had been hiding in underground shelters, listening to the sound of death falling from orbit. "Captain," Hana said carefully, "may I ask you about the prisoners?" The 8,000 captured Vorthak soldiers were being held in a secure compound outside the settlement. They were well fed and properly cared for, but their future remained uncertain. "They will be transported to Earth for trial," Sung-min answered. "Some may face execution for war crimes, but most will probably spend their lives in prison." "And you believe this is justice?" "I believe it's better than what they planned for your people." Hana nodded slowly. The Vorthak had come to New Haven to commit genocide. They had destroyed art, burned libraries, and hunted children through the ruins of their homes. Whatever punishment they faced, it would be more merciful than what they had intended for the Talani. "There is something else I must ask," she continued. "Will more of them come? The Vorthak Empire is vast, and they do not forgive insults." Sung-min smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. "Let them come. The galaxy needs to learn that there are consequences for preying on the innocent." His confidence was absolute, and Hana found it both comforting and slightly frightening. These humans truly believed they could face any threat and emerge victorious. Perhaps they were right. In the Retribution's communications center, Hyun-woo was monitoring transmissions from across the galaxy. Word of what had happened at New Haven was spreading faster than light, carried by merchant ships and diplomatic couriers to every civilized world. "Sir, you should hear this," he called to Captain Sung Min as they returned from their walk through the colony. The transmission was from the Galactic Council headquarters, broadcast on all official frequencies. "The Council expresses its concern over the recent military action taken by human forces in the New Haven system. While we acknowledge that the Talani colony was under attack, the complete destruction of a Vorthak battle fleet represents an escalation that could destabilize the entire region." Sung Min listened to the diplomatic double-talk with growing disgust. The Council had ignored the Talani distress calls for 3 days, leaving 12,000 innocents to die. Now they were worried about destabilization because someone had actually done something to help. "Any response from Earth Command?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Short and to the point." Hyun Woo played the message from Admiral Kim, the head of Earth's military forces. "Well done, Retribution. Come home when you're finished there, and tell the Council that if they don't like how we handle genocidal maniacs, they can file a complaint with someone who cares." The captain chuckled. Admiral Kim had never been known for diplomatic subtlety. "Sir, there's one more transmission you should hear," Hyun Woo added. "This one is being broadcast by the Talani themselves." Elder Hana's voice filled the communication center, but this was not the frightened whisper they had heard during the siege. Now she spoke with strength and dignity, addressing the entire galaxy. "To all species who can hear this message, 3 days ago our world faced extinction. The Vorthak Empire came to New Haven to murder every living thing, to erase our civilization from existence. We called for help, but no one answered. No one except the humans of Earth. One ship came to our aid. 150 people who had never met us, who owed us nothing, who could have stayed safely in their own space. They came because it was right. They fought because innocence needed protection. They risked everything because someone had to stand against the darkness. We will never forget what the humans did for us. But more importantly, we will never let the galaxy forget. When evil seems overwhelming, when hope appears lost, remember that somewhere among the stars, Earth's children are watching, and they will not let innocence perish while they have strength to prevent it." The message continued, but Sung Min had heard enough. He looked around at his crew, these men and women who had followed him into impossible odds and emerged victorious. They had done more than save a single colony. They had sent a message that would echo across the galaxy for generations. "Captain," Ji-Woo spoke up from her tactical station, "long-range sensors are detecting multiple ships entering the system. Configuration suggests Vorthak design." "How many?" "Preliminary count shows 27 vessels, including at least 6 dreadnoughts. It's a full battle fleet, sir." Sung Min felt his pulse quicken. The Vorthak had sent reinforcements, probably hoping to recapture their lost troops and exact revenge for their humiliation, but they were in for a surprise. "Send a message to the lead ship," he ordered Hyun-Woo. "Inform them that New Haven is under the protection of the United Earth Forces. They have 10 minutes to withdraw from this system. And if they refuse, then they'll learn what happened to the last Vorthak fleet that threatened this world." The reply came back within minutes, filled with the arrogance that had made the Vorthak Empire so many enemies. "Human vessel, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. The Vorthak Empire does not negotiate with inferior species." Sung Min looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleet. 27 ships against 1. The odds were even worse than they had been 3 days ago. "Sir," So Young said quietly, "should I begin evasive maneuvers?" "No," the Captain replied calmly. Hold position. Hyunwoo, send them one more message. What should I say, sir? Sung Min's smile was cold as winter in space. Tell them that the last Vorthak admiral who underestimated humans is currently sitting in a prison cell, along with 8,000 of his soldiers. Tell them that if they want to join him, they're welcome to try their luck. And then, sir? And then we remind the galaxy why you should never pick a fight with someone who has nothing to lose and everything to prove. The Retribution began to move, its weapon systems coming online with deadly precision. Behind them, New Haven continued its recovery under the protection of human shields. Above them, the stars waited to witness another chapter in the growing legend of humanity's guardianship. The Vorthak had come seeking revenge. Instead, they would find something far more dangerous. Humans who had tasted victory and found it to their liking. In the underground shelters that had become symbols of hope rather than despair, Talani children listened to their parents tell stories of the day the sky burned and salvation came from Earth. These stories would be passed down through generations, becoming part of the racial memory of a people who had learned that in the darkest hour, help could come from the most unexpected place. And throughout the galaxy, other species watched and wondered. If humans would fight so hard for strangers, what would they do for their friends? If they could destroy entire fleets to protect innocents, what would happen to anyone who threatened Earth itself? The age of human expansion had begun, and it would be written in the light of burning Vorthak ships.